felt cold, ice cold, like death itself had come to collect. "Please," she whispered, her voice shaking. "Please, Marcus said he'd pay, he promised." The Korean man holding the gun didn't blink. His face was carved from stone, beautiful and terrifying all at once. Dark eyes that could swallow galaxies stared down at her without a shred of mercy. "Marcus," he said slowly, tasting the name like poison, "is a coward who sold you to cover his debts. And now, Shanice Wallace, you belong to me." 3 days earlier, Shanice had been planning a wedding. Now she was staring down the barrel of a gun, wondering how love had turned into the worst nightmare of her life. Let's rewind. Shanice Wallace was the kind of woman who turned heads without trying. 26 years old, with warm brown skin that glowed like she'd been kissed by the sun itself, and natural curls she'd finally learned to love after years of flat irons and damage. She worked as a pediatric nurse at Chicago Mercy Hospital, the kind of job that paid okay but left her exhausted and emotionally drained by the end of every shift. But none of that mattered because she was in love. Marcus Trent had swept into her life 2 years ago at her cousin's barbecue. Tall, charming, with a smile that could sell ice to Eskimos. He worked in investments, or so he said, drove a BMW, wore expensive cologne, took her to nice restaurants and told her she deserved the world. 6 months ago, he'd proposed with a 2-carat ring that had made her friends gasp and her mother cry happy tears. The wedding was supposed to be in 3 weeks. Shanice had already picked out her dress, a gorgeous mermaid-style gown with lace sleeves that made her feel like a princess. Her bridesmaids had their dresses. The venue was booked. The deposits were paid. Everything was perfect. Until the night Marcus came home with blood on his shirt. It was a Tuesday. Shanice remembered because Tuesdays were her short days at the hospital. She'd gotten home early, made spaghetti, and was settling in to watch her favorite reality show when Marcus burst through the door of their apartment. His face was pale. Sweat dripped down his temples despite the October chill outside. And there it was, a dark stain spreading across his white button-down. "Baby," Shanice shot up from the couch, her heart hammering. "What happened? Are you hurt?" Marcus locked the door behind him, then locked the deadbolt, then slid the chain into place. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely manage it. "Marcus, talk to me." Shanice grabbed his arm, checking for injuries. "Whose blood is this?" "Not mine," he said quietly, too quietly. "Shanice, I messed up." Those 3 words sent ice through her veins. "What do you mean you messed up?" She stepped back, suddenly aware that she didn't know this version of Marcus. This pale, trembling, terrified version. He wouldn't meet her eyes. "I borrowed money. A lot of money from the wrong people." "What people?" "Marcus, what are you talking about?" "I thought I could flip it," he continued, his voice breaking. "I had a sure thing. A real estate deal in Miami. I just needed capital, so I went to a loan shark." Shanice felt the room tilt. "A loan shark? Are you insane?" "It was supposed to be easy money," Marcus exploded, finally looking at her. His eyes were red, desperate. "I was going to triple the investment in 6 months. Pay him back and have enough left over to buy us a house. A real house, Shanice, not this crappy apartment." "How much?" Her voice came out flat, dead. Marcus swallowed hard. 200,000. The number hit her like a physical blow. Shanice actually stumbled backward, catching herself on the arm of the couch. 200, Marcus. We don't have that kind of money. I'm a nurse. You said you worked in investments, but I've never even seen a pay stub." "The deal fell through," he said miserably. "The property was tied up in legal issues. By the time I found out, I'd already spent 30 grand on due diligence and earnest money. It's gone. All of it. So get it back from the sellers." "It doesn't work like that. And the shark," Shanice gave me 2 weeks to pay. That was 13 days ago. The blood drained from Shanice's face. "The blood on your shirt." Marcus nodded. "He sent guys to my office today, roughed me up, Said tomorrow is my last chance. He grabbed her hands, squeezing so tight it hurt. Baby, I need your help. Do you have any money saved? Anything? Shanice yanked her hands away. I have 12,000 in my savings account, for our future, for our life together, and you want me to hand it over to some criminal. It'll buy me time. Time for what? To get us both killed. The argument that followed was the worst fight they'd ever had. Shanice refused to give him the money. Marcus called her selfish. She called him reckless and stupid. He punched a hole in the living room wall. She threatened to call off the wedding. Finally, Marcus left, slammed the door so hard the frame cracked. Shanice stood in the wreckage of their apartment, surrounded by wedding magazines and the spaghetti dinner that had gone cold, and cried until she had nothing left. He didn't come home that night, or the next morning. By the afternoon, Shanice was worried enough to call his cell. It went straight to voicemail. She called his office. They said he'd called in sick. She called his boys, his cousins, even his mother. Nobody had seen him. 24 hours after their fight, 3 men showed up at her door. 2 of them were large, muscular, the kind of men you crossed the street to avoid. They wore all black and had the dead eyes of people who'd seen and done terrible things. But it was the 3rd man who made Shanice's breath catch in her throat. He was Korean, probably in his early 30s, with sharp, elegant features that belonged on a magazine cover. He wore an expensive tailored suit, black on black with a silk shirt that probably cost more than Shanice's monthly rent. His hair was styled perfectly, not a strand out of place. He was devastatingly handsome and absolutely terrifying. Shanice Wallace. His voice was smooth, cultured, with just a hint of an accent that made her name sound like music. She stood frozen in her doorway, her scrub still on from her shift. Who are you? My name is Kang Minho. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I believe you know why I'm here. Shanice's mouth went dry. I don't know where Marcus is. Neither do I. Minho tilted his head slightly, studying her like she was a puzzle he needed to solve. But he left me something. A promissory note. Very official. Very legal if you ignore the parts that make it illegal. That terrifying smile widened. Would you like to see it? He pulled a folded paper from his inside jacket pocket, extended it toward her with long, elegant fingers. Shanice didn't want to take it. Every instinct screamed at her to slam the door, call the police, run. But her hand reached out anyway, trembling, and unfolded the document. The words swam before her eyes, legal jargon, dollar amounts with too many zeros, and there at the bottom Marcus's signature. And her name. I don't understand, she whispered. It's quite simple. Minho stepped closer, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something dark and expensive. Your fiancé borrowed $200,000 from my organization. When he couldn't pay, he offered collateral. You. The world stopped. That's not legal. You can't just. Can't I? Minho raised an eyebrow. Miss Wallace, I'm not interested in what's legal. I'm interested in what's mine. And according to this document, until Marcus Trent pays his debt in full, you belong to me. Shanice tried to slam the door. One of the large men caught it effortlessly, his palm flat against the wood, holding it open like it weighed nothing. Please, Minho said, his voice still calm, still polite. Don't make this difficult. I'd prefer not to involve the authorities. I imagine you wouldn't either, given that you're technically an accessory to fraud. I didn't do anything. You've been living off Marcus's borrowed money for months. The apartment, the ring on your finger, all purchased with my capital. You may not have known the source, but ignorance isn't innocence. Tears burned behind Shanice's eyes. What do you want from me? Come with us quietly. Work off your fiancé's debt. 3 months of service and you're free to go. Refuse, and I'll make sure both you and Marcus spend the next decade in prison. I have very good lawyers and very convincing evidence. Service, the word tasted like ash. What kind of service? Minho's smile returned. Nothing that violates your precious morality, I assure you. I need a personal assistant, someone organized, trustworthy, discreet. You're a nurse, which means you can follow instructions and handle pressure. Perfect qualifications. It sounded too good to be true, which meant it definitely was. But what choice did she have? Shanice looked down at the ring on her finger. The 2-carat diamond Marcus had given her with promises of forever. She thought about their apartment, the wedding dress hanging in her closet, the life she'd planned. All of it built on lies. If I go with you, she said slowly, Marcus goes free. If he stays hidden long enough for you to work off his debt, yes. If he's stupid enough to show his face, well, Minho shrugged elegantly. That's not your concern. Shanice closed her eyes. Tried to find the girl who'd grown up in South Side Chicago, who'd worked 2 jobs to pay for nursing school, who'd promised herself she'd never let a man ruin her life. That girl would have fought, would have called the police, taken her chances, gone down swinging. But that girl had never been in love with a liar, had never felt her entire future collapse in a single moment. I need to pack, Shanice heard herself say. Minho inclined his head. You have 10 minutes, bring only necessities, everything else will be provided. The 2 large men followed her inside, watched as she moved through the apartment in a daze, throwing clothes into a duffel bag, toiletries, her phone charger, a photo of her and her mother. She paused at the wedding dress, ran her fingers over the lace. Miss Wallace, Minho called from the living room. Time up. Shanice left the dress behind, left the wedding magazines and the life she'd imagined, and walked out of that apartment knowing she'd never come back. The car waiting downstairs was a black SUV with tinted windows, the kind you see in movies about organized crime. Shanice climbed into the back seat and Minho slid in beside her. The 2 large men took the front. As they pulled away from her building, Shanice watched her old life disappear in the side mirror. Where are we going? Her voice sounded hollow even to her own ears. My home, Minho replied. Don't worry, Miss Wallace, I'm not a monster. You'll have your own room, your own space. As long as you follow the rules, you'll be quite comfortable. And if I don't follow the rules? He turned to look at her fully for the first time. In the dim light of the car, his features were sharp angles and shadows, beautiful and deadly. Then we'll have a problem, he said softly, and I don't like problems. The drive took 30 minutes, winding through Chicago's downtown and into one of the wealthiest neighborhoods on the Gold Coast. The SUV pulled up to a high-rise that looked like it belonged in Dubai, all glass and steel and modern architecture. They took a private elevator to the penthouse. The doors opened directly into Minho's apartment, and Shanice's breath caught despite everything. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Lake Michigan. The furniture was sleek and modern, all black leather and chrome. Original artwork hung on the walls, pieces she recognized from her art history class in college. This wasn't just wealth, this was power. Your room is this way. Minho led her down a hallway to a bedroom that was bigger than her entire apartment had been. King-sized bed, walk-in closet, attached bathroom with a tub that could fit 3 people. Get some rest, he said. Tomorrow we'll discuss your duties. Breakfast is at 7, don't be late. He left, closing the door behind him with a soft click. Shanice stood in the center of that beautiful, terrifying room and finally let herself fall apart. She sank to the floor, back against the bed, and sobbed until her throat was raw. Marcus had sold her, actually sold her to a criminal to save his own skin. The man she'd loved, the man she'd planned to marry, had traded her like property. And somewhere out there, he was probably congratulating himself on his escape. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Shanice pulled it out with shaking hands. A text from an unknown number. I'm sorry, baby. I'll fix this, I promise. I love you. Marcus. Shanice stared at those words until they blurred. Then she threw her phone across the room. It hit the wall and shattered, pieces scattering across the expensive hardwood floor. She didn't want his apologies, didn't want his promises. She wanted her life back. But as she sat there in that golden cage, watching the sun set over Lake Michigan, Shanice realized something terrifying. Her old life was gone, and whatever came next, whoever she became in this twisted new reality, she'd have to survive it alone. The only question was, could she? Morning came too soon. Shanice barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Marcus's face, heard Minho's smooth voice, felt the cold press of her new reality settling over her like a suffocating blanket. At 6:45, she dragged herself out of bed and into the shower. The bathroom was stocked with expensive toiletries, designer brands she'd only seen in magazines. It felt wrong using them, like she was accepting this situation instead of fighting it. But what was the alternative? Run. To where? With what money? She dried off, dressed in jeans and a simple sweater from her duffel bag, and ventured out of her room at exactly 7:00. The smell of coffee and something sweet led her to a massive kitchen where Minho sat at an island, reading something on his tablet. He wore gray slacks and a black cashmere sweater, looking effortlessly perfect this early in the morning. "Good," he said without looking up. "You're punctual, I appreciate that." A small Korean woman appeared from somewhere, placing a plate of food in front of Shanice. Scrambled eggs, toast, fresh fruit. Shanice's stomach growled despite her anger. "Eat," Minho instructed. "We have a busy day." Shanice sat, keeping as much distance between them as the island allowed. What exactly does a personal assistant to a criminal do? Minho finally looked up, his dark eyes amused. "I prefer the term entrepreneur. And you'll do whatever I need. Today, that means accompanying me to several business meetings. Your job is to observe, take notes, and learn how my organization operates. I'm not signing anything. I'm not helping you with illegal." "You'll do exactly what I tell you to do," Minho interrupted, his voice still calm but with an edge of steel beneath it. "Or I make one phone call and Marcus dies. Then I make another and you spend the next 15 years in federal prison. Am I being clear?" Shanice's hands clenched around her fork. "Crystal." "Excellent," he returned to his tablet. "Finish your breakfast. We leave in 20 minutes." The rest of the morning passed in a blur. Shanice followed Minho to meetings in anonymous office buildings and private clubs, places where men in expensive suits exchanged briefcases and spoke in code about shipments and distributions. She wasn't stupid. This was organized crime, probably drugs or weapons or both, and she was being forced to witness it, to become complicit by her presence alone. But every time she thought about running, about screaming for help, she remembered that promissory note, Marcus's signature, her name. Minho had trapped her perfectly. By early afternoon, they returned to the penthouse. Shanice was exhausted, mentally drained from hours of watching criminals conduct business like it was Wall Street. "You did well today," Minho said as they entered the apartment. "No hysterics, no attempts to bolt. I'm impressed." "Don't be," Shanice snapped. "I'm just trying to survive." Survival is a skill. He moved to the bar, poured himself a drink. "Most people in your position would have already made a fatal mistake. You're smarter than that, or just more trapped." Minho studied her over the rim of his glass. "You're angry, I understand that, but anger won't change your circumstances. Adaptation will." "Is that what you did?" The words came out before Shanice could stop them. Adapted to being a criminal, she expected fury, violence, but Minho just smiled, cold and sharp. "I was born into this life, Miss Wallace. My father ran this organization before me, his father before him. For 3 generations, the Kang family has controlled the Korean underground in Chicago. I didn't choose this path. I inherited it. You could walk away, could I?" He set down his glass. "Tell me, if you could walk away from Marcus right now, from your debt, from all of this, would you?" "In a heartbeat." Liar, Minho moved closer and Shanice's breath caught. He was tall, intimidating in a way that had nothing to do with the men with guns. You're still wearing his ring. Shanice looked down. The diamond glinted in the afternoon light. She'd forgotten she still had it on. I forgot you forgot nothing. Minho reached out, his fingers brushing hers as he examined the ring. His touch was warm, electric. You're still hopping he'll rescue you. That's he'll magically produce $200,000 and ride in on a white horse. You don't know anything about me. I know everything about you. He released her hand, stepped back. Shanice Marie Wallace, 26 years old, graduated top of your class from Malcolm X College's nursing program. No criminal record, not even a parking ticket. Your mother, Diane, lives in Inglewood. Your father abandoned you when you were 7. You have a younger brother, Deshaun, currently serving 3 years for possession. Shanice's blood ran cold. Stay away from my family. As long as you cooperate, they're perfectly safe. Minho's smile was genuine this time, which somehow made it worse. See, I'm not unreasonable, I'm just thorough. The days blurred together. Shanice fell into a routine that felt both surreal and terrifyingly normal. Wake up at 6:30. Breakfast with Minho at 7:00. Follow him to meetings, take notes. Watch as money and power changed hands in back rooms and private offices. At night, she'd return to her golden cage of a bedroom and cry, until she had no tears left. Marcus texted occasionally, always from different numbers, always apologizing, always promising to fix everything. Shanice stopped reading them after the first week. The worst part, she was getting used to it. Minho wasn't cruel. He never raised his voice, never threatened her beyond that first conversation. He was considerate in his own cold way. He made sure she ate, gave her space when she needed it, even replaced her shattered phone without being asked. It would have been easier if he was a monster, easier to hate him, to plan her escape. But he was just a man, a dangerous, complicated man who'd been born into violence and accepted it as normal. 2 weeks into her captivity, everything changed. They were returning from a meeting in Chinatown when the SUV suddenly swerved. The driver, a man named Park, shouted something in Korean. Minho's expression hardened. Get down. Down. He shoved Shanice's head below the window just as gunfire erupted. The world exploded into chaos. Glass shattered. The SUV fishtailed. Park was screaming. Someone was shooting at them, bullets pinging off the armored sides of the vehicle. Minho had a gun in his hand. Shanice hadn't even seen him draw it. He returned fire through the broken window, his face a mask of cold focus. Drive, he barked at Park. South entrance now. The SUV roared forward, tires squealing. More gunfire. A bullet whizzed past Shanice's head so close she felt the air move. Then they were taking a corner at breakneck speed, and suddenly they were underground in some kind of parking garage. The shooting stopped. Silence fell, broken only by their ragged breathing. Is she hit? Minho demanded, holstering his gun and turning to Shanice. She couldn't speak, couldn't move. Shock had locked her muscles. Minho's hands were on her, checking for injuries with practiced efficiency. Shanice, look at me. Are you hurt? No, she managed. I don't think so. His jaw clenched. Park status. Surface wound, boss, I'm good. Get us home now. The drive back to the penthouse took 10 minutes, though it felt like hours. Shanice couldn't stop shaking. She'd seen violence on TV, in movies, but never like that. Never real bullets, real death narrowly avoided. When they finally made it inside, Minho immediately turned to his men, issuing rapid orders in Korean. They dispersed, leaving him and Shanice alone in the massive living room. That was the Russians, Minho said, more to himself than to her. Yuri's getting bold. Who's Yuri? Competition. He poured himself a drink, downed it in one swallow. We've been at peace for 3 years, but apparently that's over. Shanice's legs finally gave out. She sank onto the leather couch, her whole body trembling. Someone just tried to kill us. Someone just tried to kill me, Minho corrected. You were collateral damage. Oh well, that makes me feel so much better. He actually laughed, a short, harsh sound. Welcome to my world, Miss Wallace. This is insane. I'm a nurse. I help people. She couldn't finish the sentence. Minho sat beside her, closer than he'd ever been. Close enough that she could see the faint scar above his left eyebrow, the slight tension in his shoulders that suggested he wasn't as calm as he appeared. Listen to me, he said quietly. What happened today, that was a warning. Yuri is testing my defenses, seeing how I respond. It won't happen again. How can you possibly know that? Because tomorrow, I'm going to kill him. The casual way he said it, like he was talking about the weather or what to have for dinner, sent chills down Shanice's spine. That's murder. It's survival. Minho stood, straightened his jacket. In my world, you eliminate threats before they eliminate you. Yuri drew first blood, now I finish it. And what about me? Shanice's voice cracked. I could have died today, because of Marcus's debt, because of your war with whoever this Yuri person is. When does this end? Minho turned to face her fully. For the first time since she'd met him, something like regret flickered across his features. 11 weeks, he said. You have 11 more weeks, then you're free. If I survive that long, I'll keep you safe. The promise in his voice was ironclad. Today was an anomaly. I won't let it happen again. Why? The question burst out of her. Why do you even care? I'm just collateral for Marcus's debt. Why not just cut your losses and let me go? Minho was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was so soft she almost didn't hear it. Because you don't deserve this. Then he walked away, leaving Shanice alone with those words echoing in her mind. That night Shanice couldn't sleep. She kept hearing the gunfire, kept seeing Minho's cold expression as he fired back, kept feeling the terror of knowing she could have died. At 2 a.m. she gave up and wandered out to the living room. The city lights glittered below, Chicago spread out like a jewel box. Can't sleep either. Shanice jumped. Minho sat in one of the leather chairs near the window, a glass of whiskey in his hand. He'd changed into black loungewear, his hair mussed for the first time since she'd met him. He looked human. You scared me, Shanice said, her heart hammering. Sorry, he gestured to the chair across from him. Join me. She should have gone back to bed, should have maintained the distance between captor and captive. But she was tired, so tired of being scared and alone. Shanice sat. Want some? Minho offered his glass. I don't drink. Maybe you should start. Despite everything, Shanice almost smiled, trying to corrupt me. Too late for that. You've been complicit in organized crime for 2 weeks now. Against my will. Is it? Minho studied her. You haven't tried to escape, haven't contacted the police, haven't even asked about witness protection. Because you have my family's information. Because Marcus stopped, the words caught in her throat. Because Marcus is what? Minho prompted. Because he's probably dead already, Shanice whispered. Isn't he? You said if he showed his face. He's alive. Minho took a sip of his drink. Hiding in Milwaukee with a woman named Tanya. He's been there since the day after I took you. The words hit like a physical blow. What? He called Tanya from his office the day my men came for him. Told her to pack a bag, that they were going on a trip. They've been shacked up in a motel ever since. Shanice couldn't breathe. You're lying. I don't lie. Minho pulled out his phone, tapped a few times, then handed it to her. See for yourself. The screen showed a surveillance photo. Marcus, clearly recognizable, leaving a Motel 6 with his arm around a blonde woman. They were smiling, laughing. He looked happy. The phone slipped from Shanice's fingers. She was going to be sick. He left me, she heard herself say. He sold me and then left me. Yes. He's been safe this whole time while I've been here, while I got shot at today, and he's just living his life with another woman. The rage that flooded through Shanice was unlike anything she'd ever felt. White-hot, consuming. It burned away the grief, the fear, everything except pure fury. "Where is he?" Her voice came out deadly calm. Minho's eyes gleamed. "Why?" "Because I want to look him in the eye. I want him to see what he did to me." Shanice met his gaze, "and then I want him to suffer." A slow smile spread across Minho's face. Not his cold, professional smile, something genuine and dark and approving. "Now you're speaking my language."
Episode 1 ends here. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, please like, share and subscribe to my channel. Also click on the notification bell, so that you will get notified whenever a new story comes up. You can also go ahead to tell me the country you are watching from, so that I can make a story for you.